Hello everyone, welcome to AITAREYA Institute and our daily current affairs program. I am Aditya Singh. So at AITAREYA we believe that current affairs should not be studied as isolated news reports, but as interconnected themes that shape the governance, that shape the policy, economy, environment, science and technology, and international relations. So through this series, we will transform daily news into a UPSC ready knowledge with conceptual clarity, analytical depth, and an exam focused insights. So without any further delay, let's begin today's current affairs discussion. Okay. So the first news article that is very much in news is Iran's disruptive strategy. You must be well aware of the ongoing conflict between US and Iran that is happening. Okay. So what is the background? What is the escalation? What are its consequences on the global world order and global economy? So the core doctrine so the core doctrine of this disruptive strategy is that Iran is employing coercive brinkmanship. Okay, so what is coercive brinkmanship? Iran is leveraging a state-backed military power and control of the Strait of Hormuz and an asymmetric proxy network called the axis of resistance. So two or three things it is doing in order to employ that coercive brinkmanship. So what is it? First and foremost is you are leveraging state-backed military power. You are using that state-backed military power. Okay. Second is you are trying to control the most important strait, which is the Strait of Hormuz. Very, very, very important. I'm sure you must be well aware of Strait of Hormuz. And because of this, the crude oil prices, the LPG prices are shooting up rapidly. So roughly around 20% of the crude oil of the world passes through this Strait of Hormuz. So you can use this data in your answers. Okay. Thirdly, it is using an asymmetric proxy network. What is asymmetric proxy network? See, there are two kinds of attacks. One is directly that the nation undergoes, and second is indirectly. And that is why this indirectly is called proxy. And I'm sure you, if you in your graduation, you must have heard about proxy attendance. So if let's say I'm not going to the class, I'm asking my friend, please put my attendance on my behalf. So he is giving proxy on my behalf. Okay. So similarly, the Iran won't be directly attacking the nations, but using other forces which are already present in that region in order to serve his interest. Okay. So like Hamas. Okay. Hamas, I'm sure you must be well aware about Hamas. This is in Palestine. Okay. Palestine. So it is using Hamas to act and fight against which nation? Israel. So rather than directly going into fight against Israel, it is using Palestine. It is using in Palestine. It is using Hamas, a group present already in Palestine. So it is using Hamas to attack Israel. Okay. Second is Hezbollah, and third is Houthis. Okay. So these are the other proxy groups that it is utilizing. So what happened in Feb 28, 2026? A large-scale war erupted between US, after what happened was US-Israel bombing campaign. They started bombing different sites in Iran. Because of the combined, bombing by US and Israel against Iran, Iran retaliated. How it can retaliate? The best way it can do so is by blocking the Strait of Hormuz, which it did so, and it is also doing right now. Okay. So Islamabad MOU, which was signed earlier, it collapsed. So it was signed in June of 2026. So a peace agreement was the June 2026 peace agreement happened in Islamabad, with the interference of Pakistan. So that broke down within a month. It could not even sustain a month. So it broke down within a month, following a renewed US maritime blockade on Iranian ports. So now what is happening is US maritime and a US marine, US Marines ships, those all things are blocking the Iranian ports. So this is how US is US is acting against Iran. Then hardline consolidation. After Khamenei's death, I'm sure you must be well aware about Khamenei's death. And because of Khamenei's death, the repercussions were also quite visible among the Indian Muslims. So after Khamenei's death, the IRGC, okay, the Revolutionary Guard, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, IRGC, and the ultra-conservative clerics now firmly control the Iranian state apparatus. So now the power has shifted from Khamenei to IRGC and those ultra-conservative clerics. Okay. So recent strikes, the US CENTCOM launched various air raids near Bandar Abbas. Now you have to remember this. Bandar Abbas. Very, very important. Bandar Abbas Port, Kasham and Bushehr. Okay. So Iran struck the US Fifth Fleet in Bahrain. Jordan intercepted 3 inbound Iranian missiles. So this was all in retaliation. So in this, what you need to remember is first and foremost thing, you can use it in mains. This point you can use it, the core doctrine, Iran's disruptive strategy. You can use this point in your mains answers. Okay, it will make your answers look very good. In this point itself, what you need to remember is how the proxy attacks happen. This point, Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, where they are located, their regions. Okay, so this could be asked in your prelims. I'm telling you each and everything from where question could be asked. Okay, highly unlikely that any question on Islamabad MOU or its collapse would be asked. Then a mapping based question could be asked as to where is Bandar Abbas port, where is Keshm and Bushehr. So these 3 points. Second thing that you have to remember is these 3 locations could be asked in your prelims. You have to remember this. So this is for your mapping part. And you have to, this is your homework. You have to go and demarcate this. So what is the impact? What is the price trajectory? So as you can very well see that the crude oil prices have climbed higher at the US and Iran stepped up attacks. As soon as the US and Iran have upscaled their attacks, the crude oil prices have rapidly shot up. This is what is happening. So in June, there was a peace treaty that was signed, a peace agreement that was signed. Here it was Islamabad MOU. Islamabad MOU. Because of this, the crude oil prices started falling down like this, and then again they have started rising. That is precisely because of the events that are happening around the Strait of Hormuz. If you don't know where is Hormuz, you have to go and demarcate it in the map itself. Okay, so this is how the crude oil prices are becoming volatile on account of the Iran-Israel-US war that is ongoing. So today it has reached up to 84 dollars per barrel. Okay, the highest level in almost a month, and this will further rise. Okay, so Iran's disruptive strategy. What are the consequences on the world and India specifically? So global consequences are quite visible. The Brent crude, this was asked in your prelims. What is Brent? Okay. So remember this. It's a marker, actually a marker of crude oil. Okay. So that has surged 15%. Now it has risen 15% to around $85 per barrel, which has destabilized the entire global energy markets. Secondly, Strait of Hormuz blockade threatens 1/3 of global helium. Everyone is talking about crude oil, everyone is talking about LPG, but rarely you will find out that people are talking about helium. Okay, so that will make your answers look a bit different if you also include helium also. And a large share of world LNG supply. Why is helium so important? है ना? global helium supply, almost one third, almost 33% of the world's helium, and a large amount of LNG. LNG we all know, and LNG supply is directly impacted by it. IMF warned that the global oil reserve buffers have been fully exhausted. Now this is empty, okay, leaving no capacity to absorb future shocks. So what happens is, generally, if you have any war, and we all know volatility we have such a volatility in crude oil prices. So what nations do is, let's say India has also started creating buffers, three places like in Padur, in Mangalore. So these are some of the places where India has created the oil reserve buffers and storage systems. So, but if the war, the time period of the war stretches too much, then even the buffer reserves will get empty, and then the nation will be dependent on the volatile crude oil market. Okay, so as the prices rise, the entire supply chain will get disrupted. So that is why this is a warning by IMF that it is going to destabilize the global economic order. So Iran is levying special transit tariffs in Iran is imposing on selected nations to fracture the collective international opposition. So let's say if any nation is particularly favoring US or particularly favoring Israel, so what Iran will do is, in order for that nation to pass through Strait of Hormuz, you have to pay extra tax. Okay, so this is what Iran is doing in order to fracture that collective international cooperation. Okay, and what is the impact on India? As we have already told, 90%, do remember this point, almost close to 90% of India's LPG imports pass through this Strait of Hormuz. And we have clearly seen the impact of rising LPG prices not only at our own homes but also at the commercial level. Those shops, those restaurants, those hotels, prices have automatically risen. Okay, that is precisely because the global LPG prices have increased, and India is dependent. 90% of India's LPG demands is met through imports, and that passes through the Strait of Hormuz. Passes through the Strait of Hormuz. So immediate risk to domestic cooking fuel security. Okay. So so this is one impact. Another impact is investment. India has a huge amount of investment in Chabahar Port and International North-South Transit Corridor, INSTC. Very, very important. You have to remember these. And you have to remember its entire path as well. Okay, Chabahar Port must include it in mains. Okay, so Chabahar Port and INST, India has a huge amount, and with the diplomatic negotiations with US, there have been times where India has been able to separate it from the discussions, because Chabahar Port is very important for India in order to reach the Central Asian nations, or let's say Afghanistan for now. Okay, so you have your famous from Chabahar Port, so you have your famous Zaranj Delaram Highway. Okay, Zaranj Delaram Highway connecting Iran with Afghanistan. So all this will become useless if you are unable to access Chabahar port itself. Okay, if you are unable to access Chabahar port, the path to Afghanistan will become very difficult, will become very costly. Okay, India also co-sponsored the UNSC resolution 2817, formally condemning Iran's attack on Jordan and Gulf Cooperation Council nations. Okay, so Iran is attacking. So now this is an issue because India has co-sponsored such UNSC resolution which condemns Iran attacks. Okay, what is the way forward? So these 3 points you can use it in your mains, and this fact that 90% of LPG's import pass through the Strait of Hormuz, that could be asked in your prelims. And a question, Chabar port, it is highly because very famous. It will be asked in prelims. In small state exams, it could be asked Chaba Airport. INSTC corridor. And you have to remember the entire path from where it moves. Okay. So INSTC corridor could be asked in prelims as well. And this resolution, it would generally be asked, it will generally not be asked. You can use it in your mains. Okay. So here I have provided also a practice question, practice mains question. Discuss the significance of US-Iran ceasefire for regional stability. You have to discuss it in West Asia. Explain its implication for India's foreign policy. See, if any such major global event happens, the main question will generally be around what will be the impact on India, okay, or the implication for India's foreign policy, or how can India navigate through this challenge. So this is how question around means are developed and not directly around US and Iran. Okay, moving forward. So next is Umang portal data breach. And now Umang portal data breach. So what happened? What are the, this is a very key issue, data breaches. It often happens in India. A massive Aadhaar data breach happened few years ago, and data around data of AIMS was hacked multiple times. Okay, even during the COVID times, and you had your Arogya Setu, app. All those data was leaked, and and particularly the most crucial thing, that the data that is leaked was the Aadhaar data breach. Very, very, the worst thing that could have happened. Aadhaar data, it was sold at the dark web. See, it was sold at the dark web. This was happened. You can also use this also. The latest one is Umang Day. What does all of this reflect? That India's security architecture is not optimum, is not fit enough to handle such cyber attacks. So you can have a question whenever you have a question on cyber security, and please do include such current examples. Okay, and every alternate years or after 2 years, a question on cyber security is asked in your mains. Okay, highly unlikely that a question in prelims will be asked, but the basic thing, Umang portal, everyone knows about what is an Umang portal. And so generally that won't be asked in prelims, but more around mains portion. Okay. So first of all, what is Umang? For all of you who do not know what is an Umang portal, very, very important, you should download it. It is an integrated digital governance platform aggregating over 2,400 services from both union as well as state governments. So it is, from prelims point of view, if examiner wanted to make a question, he would simply put services from union government and not state government. So you have to remember that both the services are included from the union government as well as the state government into a single mobile interface. So that is one thing. Next, data is exposed. Security researchers found vulnerabilities exposing EPFO UANs, EPFO universal account numbers, LPG cylinder booking details, and Aadhaar numbers. All such data was exposed. So plain text Aadhaar storage. Aadhaar numbers were found stored in plain text across multiple services, violating the restrictions under the Aadhaar Act 2016. Okay, so this was the issue, plain text Aadhaar storage. This is why it was so easy to hack the data from the Umang portal, because it was stored simply in plain text, and that violated the Aadhaar Act 2016. So EPFO module risk. So Umang's most used module recorded over 40 crore transactions in just 3 months. It compromises it compromise raises enormous data security concerns. So EPFO module is the most used module on the Umang portal. So much transaction, over 40 crore transaction happened in just 3 months. So you can imagine the amount of transactions that are happening, and that data got breached. Fraud risk. So cyber criminals possessing UANs, such UANs and a universal account numbers, could alter the bank account details and trigger fraudulent EPFO payouts. Okay, if they have the universal account numbers, then what they can do is, instead of the original person's bank account, they can change this bank account number to their own bank account. So the EPF amount will then get transferred in those fraudsters accounts rather than to the beneficiary's account. Okay, so this is how this is the fraud risk. So this is very risky thing that has happened. That is why this was in news. Inadequate fix. MATI acknowledged the flaws. Okay, the MATI acknowledged the flaws and encrypted some APIs, but researchers argued that initial patches could be circumvented. Okay, so they did provide a temporary solution, but most of the researchers have said that that is inadequate and that could further be circumvented, and still the data is still at risk. So this issue was reported to MATI as well as certain. Still, no such solution have been found. And just like what has happened in the CBSC and a 10th, 12th mark sheet, all those thing numbers, how that can be changed, unfortunately. So similarly, it has happened in the Umang portal also. Okay, data at risk. So vulnerabilities in the Umang portal are exposing the user data across hundreds of services, and most important being is the UAN, Universal Account Number, and the EPFO's UANs, according to the researchers. Apart from UN, you have your LPG cylinder bookings. You also have Aadhaar numbers, and we have just seen why it happened, because Aadhaar was present in plain text. Now this was easy to this was easy to breach, and this is why, and this is also breaching. This is also against violating the Aadhaar Act of 2016. The EPFO module has been used over 40 crore times in last 300 months. Shortly after vulnerabilities were reported, the main EPFO portal was taken down for migration. Okay, the portal is presently taken down. Okay. So on the Umang portal, some of the implications we have to study. One is your identity theft risk, exposure of Aadhaar numbers, your universal account numbers, and financial data now becomes open to citizens for identity theft, for phishing attacks, for financial fraud, and targeted profiling. For instance, what is a phishing attack? What happens in phishing attacks? Just to tell you in very brief, you will be sent fraudulent emails. You will be sent for fraudulent, let's say, messages. Okay, 1 second. You will have fraudulent messages, and these messages will be from fake entities. Fake entities. Now, why they will be doing this? They will use such fake emails, messages in order to steal the login or your bank details. Okay, so this is what is phishing in very simple term. And there is another term which is smishing. Smishing. So phishing which is conducted through SMS is known as smishing. It is a growing concern in India as scammers target government event attendees with fake refund orders. And this how we have seen in India. So let's say you have government, there was a government event and there were various attendees of it. So now these attendees through SMS will be provided fake refund offers. Fake refund offers. So this is how they trap the people, smishing. Similarly, you have wishing. 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 So it is essentially your voice phishing. Voice phishing. So where attackers call the victims over the phone, often impersonating. Now they are impersonating. Whom are they impersonating? They are impersonating that they are bank people or they are government officials. Okay, they are government officials. Why? To steal the OTPs. Why? To steal their password. So never ever give the OTP or password over a phone to some unknown stranger. That is wishing, and that is also very common in India. Another term here is your spear phishing. Spear spear phishing. So it is highly targeted attack. Why the term spear is used? Because it is not random but targeted attacks. These are targeted attacks which use personal or professional information. And because the people, if they have personal or professional information, so you will tend to believe them since they are knowing a lot about you. So you will tend to believe, okay, these are actually certain government officials or bank officials as they are claiming to be. So these are highly targeted attacks that use personal or professional information to appear legitimate to a specific individual. Okay, so this is your spear phishing. Okay, next, so in the sense of governance also, how is it important? E-governance successes and limitations, and your transparency, accountability, government policies for digital infrastructure development, citizen services delivery. In all these governance questions, you can also use this news article, Umang portal data breach. Public trust erosion. So security flaws in the platform integrating 2,400 government services could fundamentally undermine the public confidence in India's expanding digital public infrastructure and the e-governance ecosystem. So essentially, where are we using this? You will be using this. This question will be asked in your GS4 papers. Not question will be asked, but you can use this in your GS4. How the public trust is getting eroded on account of this. And ethics, accountability in public administration. Someone must be held accountable for all these lapses. And protection of citizens' privacy, responsible use of personal data, and ethical governance. On all these cases, a question could be developed. Okay. Next is Indian. Next important news is Indian grey hornbill. Okay. So its scientific name you don't have to remember. A medium-sized arboreal bird. It remains in a lot of time in air. Arboreal bird of family Bucerotidae, one of the most common hornbill species of the Indian subcontinent. What is the context? News. So, successfully reintroduced in Gujarat's Gir forest by the Gir Forest Department over 60 years after disappearing from the region. And Gir forests are famous for Asiatic lion. I'm sure you must be well aware of this fact. Okay. IUCN status is least concern. It is endemic to the Indian subcontinent. You have to pay an extra focus on all the endemic species which are endemic to the Indian subcontinent. And since we are saying subcontinent, that is why apart from India, you also have Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, since we are talking about subcontinent. Now, what is the habitat where they thrive? So that is open deciduous forests. Open deciduous forest, thorn scrublands and riparian woodlands and urban parks with mature hollow trees where they can make their nests. Distinctive feature is 20 it is very long, 24 inches long. As you can see, it has silvery gray and brownish plumage. Is it visible? And I'm sure it must be visible. The silver gray plumage. Large curved bill. And this is the bill. Large curved bill topped by a prominent pointed casque. Okay. long white tipped tail is also present. Another thing, unique nesting. How is it unique? So female seals herself inside a tree cavity using mud, using feces or fruit pulp, and it depends entirely on the male for food during the nesting and molting period. Okay, so in this news article, what you have to remember is first and foremost is that the news, what is the news? Though this news will not be asked. Okay, first thing that you have to remember is the IUCN status. Second thing that you have to remember is their habitat. Where do they thrive? Which is open deciduous forest, your thorn scrubland, woodlands, urban parks. Okay, and you can visualize through its photo, through its picture. And this thing is the third thing that you have to remember. How the nesting is unique, and during the nesting phase, it is the duty of the male to provide food during the nesting and molting phase. And because the female has sealed herself inside the tree cavity using the mud, feces, and fruit pulp. So, ecological significance, these are also referred as the farmers of the forest. Okay, farmers of the forest. By consuming fruits and dispersing the seeds over long distances, Indian grey hornbills are critical drivers of forest regeneration and plant diversity, earning them the title farmers of the forest. Please do remember this. Why are they referred as farmers of the forest? Because they consume fruits and disperse it towards long distances. Okay, and this helps in forest regeneration. They help in natural pest controls. They feed on insects, they feed on lizards, scorpions, and even small animals. So eventually they help in regulating the population of the pest in both forest ecosystem and as well as agricultural areas. So you will need lesser chemical intervention. If let's say you have an agricultural field, है ना, and you are providing, let's say herbicides, uh, not herbicides, sorry, pesticides. So the pesticide is actually harmful. Various pesticides are very, very harmful for humans. So a better alternative, what you can do is encourage such kind of birds. So these birds, like your Indian grey hornbill, they will feed upon those pests. They will feed upon those pests. So your natural requirement for the pesticide that will substantially reduce. So yes, for the consumers of those crops, the health will improve, the health aspect, and for the farmers, the cost aspect will go down. So on both the aspect, it is very good. Reintroduction is a success. The Gujarat Forest Department's landmark program restored the species. So it was a success. After 60 years, it was absent in that region, demonstrating the viability of targeted wildlife reintroduction for ecological restoration in India. Okay, so yes, you can also have targeted wildlife reintroduction of species rather than allowing them to grow naturally. You can target them specifically in order to for the ecological restoration projects. Next is draft national health research policy. Okay, draft national. It is a draft. National research health policy has been created. So what it is, what are the key features? What it is India's first unified national framework. सबसे पहला फर्स्ट यूनिफाइड नेशनल यूनिफाइड है ना. इट इज कवरिंग बायोमेडिकल साइंस, it is covering clinical medicine, public health, epidemiology, digital health, emerging technologies. Everything is integrated, unified, treating health research as a national problem solving architecture. So, so the main point here is that the health should be treated as a national problem solving architecture. Okay. Aim is address the fragmented research. How will you address the fragmented research? By unifying everything, by unifying the clinical medicines, public health, epidemiology, even digital health. So addressing this fragmented research along with wide regional disparities in institutional capacity. You must have seen how the institutional capacity is lagging in the rural areas, and not just rural areas, in certain, let's say, hilly areas, in various northeastern states. So you have clear-cut regional disparity. Along with that, slow translation of findings into last mile healthcare delivery. Last mile healthcare delivery is a bigger challenge. So this is why we tend to focus on creating primary health centers, community health centers, CHCs. Okay, the more the number of PHC, the better the last mile delivery. But considering the conditions and quality of PHCs, it is highly, it is highly questionable as to how you will address the challenges of PHCs. So what is the GDP investment target? You have six-fold increase in health research. Now this is a very good thing that you are focusing on health research. So that has increased from 0.024% of GDP to 0.0272% by 2037 and to 0.15% by 2047. So six-fold increase in the health research spending is to be done. This is the need of the hour. Okay. Three-tier governance. Under this draft policy, there will be three-tier governance. One, National Health Research Stewardship Committee. This will strategize everything. Then below it, you will have Department of Health Research. That will be responsible for the implementation. And then ICMR will be responsible for the scientific leadership. So it's a three-tier governance structure that is provided under this policy. Research agenda, the priority will be TB. You must be well aware of the initiative TB Mukt Bharat, TB Mukt Bharat Abhiyan that is ongoing. Okay, India has the largest patients of tuberculosis and antimicrobial resistance. This is also a particular issue, especially related with TB. And number of cancer cases are rising, and especially your mouth cancers, your lung cancers. In women, the most common cancers are your breast cancer. Okay, so those cases are rising. So that is also another research agenda. Child nutrition, and the level of stunting in Indian children, and children are malnourished. Okay, so these are some of the issues around child malnutrition based on disease burden and equity consideration. So you will have an ICMR IRIS framework. So it shifts the scientist evaluation from paper count metrics to real world clinical translation and policy influence. So scientists will not only be associated with paper metrics, research papers and all, but they will have to address real world clinical problems. Okay, that is the agenda behind the research, and this is why a huge corpus of money will now be invested on the health research, and there will be six-fold increase in the health research spending, from the present 0.024% of GDP to 0.15% by 2047. By 2047, we are aiming to make India developed. The agenda of Vikasit Bharat. Vikasit Bharat cannot be envisaged if you do not have enough spending on the research, particularly your health research. Okay. So this policy, you have first and foremost thing is the institutional decentralization. You are going to decentralize the institution. So it mandates the state governments to compile the local research agendas based on regional disease pattern. So this is how you are decentralizing. You are focusing on regional disease patterns. You are expanding the capacity beyond few elite institutions and states, directly supporting Viksit Bharat 2047 goals. Okay, so all in all, I'm sure you must be well aware of the fact that health is a state subject. So it cannot be entirely controlled at the union level. So you need high amount of decentralization, and state governments are able to better deal with it because they will have regional disease patterns at their behest. Okay, so it will streamline the ethical approvals for multi-center clinical trials. For any kind of research in health, you require clinical trials. Without it, research is not possible, because how will you be able to apply that research? Moreover, it establishes National Research Integrity Officer. This is a very important thing. National Research Integrity Officer. Please do try to include it in your ethics paper. National Research Integrity Officer. Why? To curb the misconduct and ensure shared access to public labs and biobanks. So accessibility needs to be diversified to all the people, and not just the elite few. Okay, so this is why there's a need to establish national research integrity. I'm 100% in favor of this. AI and data governance places rigorous data places rigorous data governance, cyber security. You just read how the Umang portal data breach happened. Moreover, a few years back, AIMS was hacked not once but twice. So this is the state of affair of the artificial intelligence and data governance. That is why cyber security becomes very important. You also need to focus on community engagement and responsible AI use in medical diagnostics at absolute center of research framework. Okay, so the entire focus in the entire medical diagnostics should be responsible AI usage, responsible, okay, and not just for creating profits. Okay, profit should not be the core center behind the usage of this AI in medical diagnostics. Significance: the ICMR IRIS, this directs public research towards affordable indigenous vaccines and diagnostics, which is created by ourselves. Okay, state level research empowers regional institutions to study local health challenges and build early warning systems for future outbreaks. So this is the entire significance of the draft National Health Research Policy 2026. So we have covered it in quite detail from the point of view of mains. Okay, we have covered a fair bit of details about the prelims exam, the points that you can use in specific papers for mains also. Okay, so if you have any doubts till now, the most important news article for today we have already covered. If you have any doubt, please do mention them in the comment section itself. Okay, then see you in the next session.